I'm talking today with Snowman of the West, Jeff Davenport, who appears to be trapped in a lodge by feet of snow. Is that what's happening?
I'm in my mother-in-law's house and there's a dusting to an inch of snow on the ground. So very close. You just Paul Bunyan'd my
Oh,
situation.
well, you could have faked your way into something way more impressive because we just see foggy white behind you and everything behind you. Which, by the way, your head perfectly dissects that window,
Hmm.
bisects it, I should say.
Sure.
Um, oh wait, there's cars
Wait,
traveling very easily, so it's not 8 feet of snow.
we're down to our last can of beans. The Wi-Fi is very minimal.
Anyhow, yeah, I mean, you could have given us a snow job, I suppose, and
Yeah,
made us believe that it was worse than it is. Anyhow, it's our old good friend Jeff Davenport who's at the in-laws house for the Thanksgiving holiday.
that's right. Sure are.
And how
And
did it go over for you?
it was great. I, I, what can I say? We had a large roasted bird. We had breadcrumbs put into a casserole type dish
Oh,
with other flavors in it, some sage, some rosemary.
yep,
We
yep.
took some sort of tuber and we took that tuber and boiled it, and
Oh,
then like almost like smashing it
now
into
what
a
you've also told me that your family will sometimes put on goat skulls, and you do like a pagan. There's like a ritual or something that you do.
look. You marry into a family and you get the traditions
Uh
that
huh.
they have, and you don't question them, but you do the
Okay.
dance.
You must be learning a lot out there in the America's northwestern region.
Well, Pacific Northwest, you tell your own story there.
Yep.
We made gourd pie. Gourd pie.
I don't think that's what they call it. I think pumpkin pie is probably
Oh,
more traditional name.
I thought we did something unique there, but I guess not. So that's my trip. You took a trip recently so you and I chat fairly often, somewhat often,
It's part of my life.
but yeah, whether you want to or not.
Yeah, there it is.
But you took a big trip, and usually at some point you and I will chat on the phone, not on a Zen casting podcasting format. It's off
No.
it's off the record, I guess, as it were. Um, but this trip I don't know anything about. You took this trip, and so we thought, how about I ask you about this trip and we record it?
Yeah, you're interested in this trip for reasons that will become clear. Um, and you're going to have to moderate me here because I confess, when it comes to showing, photos of one's trips and etc., I'm the most interested person on the planet in this trip. So you're welcome to move me along.
Oh, I see. Well, okay. I'm interested in this, and so I'll tell for the listeners who are tuned in, and they're like, "Oh, good, he's getting out the old slide projector."
Yes. Grrr. Yes.
The Zapruder film. Uh,
That is what's happening.
that actually, I think there's a lot of, from what I do know about your trip, I think there's a lot of interesting things here that are
Okay.
not just, oh, good, you went to Hawaii. It's
Right,
Did you?
right, right.
You didn't go to Hawaii though, did you?
No, I'd love to.
Oh, okay.
Never have. Um, okay. Well, first of all, it's we've talked with our people a few times about celebrating things rightly and giving things the proper dignity of whatever is going on. So this was a big year for us in that it was our 20th anniversary and then it was my 50th birthday. So, I tried to think long and hard about how to do that 50th birthday. I think we've covered how my wife celebrated it. She did very well. But I'm not interested in big groups of people. I found this outfit. I think I've talked about this before. I found this outfit that does coaching. It's like college coaches that give you actual coaching at any age. And there's a basketball camp that you can drive to. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe Father, I always call him Father and I salute him when I see him. I always say, Father, maybe Father could go with me on this road trip. And what do you know? He's willing to go through the hassle of airport security, get on an airplane, come to Cincinnati, and then we're going to take this long road trip together. Now, the one limitation to that is that I wanted to be efficient about the time. And most of the time when we're there, it was in upstate New York. I'll just say this place is very remote. There's nothing, there was no cities around where we were. And I'm still a little boggled by where they stuck this basketball camp. And people came from New York and Boston and other places to be there. So good on them. But it was very remote, and that will come into play later. And it might not be easy to get from place to place. Well, a couple of days prior to going on this trip, I am going back and forth on text with our good old friend Shane. Now, Shane does some administrative work for Abraham's Wallet, and he's a great blessing to me. God bless him. So I just threw it to Shane, listen, taking a very long road trip with my dad in like 2 days. There's room in the car. There's room at the place. If you want to join us, get yourself a plane ticket. And I was busy about something. I just like, I'm throwing that out to you. I'll talk to you about this later. I know you don't even really know what this trip is, but we can talk later if you want to. And within an hour, he had texted me, got the plane tickets. I'll be arriving within an hour of your dad at the airport. Okay, great.
Okay,
So
well, hang on. Let's set the stage for people who,
yeah.
because I know your dad and I know Shane. I think we need to define some characters here for a second.
Oh,
You
okay.
say your dad is almost 83. He's not. Like, he is, but he's not. He's
Right.
jovial, plays tennis, plays golf. Like,
He's
until
vivacious.
he's vivacious. He is a bon vivant. He is a
Oh,
lover of life and a loves to eat. He's not
gumbo, lover of gumbo.
lover of. That's what bon vivant means. Literally lover of gumbo.
Uh-huh.
Not some decrepit guy who's, you didn't have to go get him from the fading flower retirement community to get
No,
him.
I had to make sure that I could plan a trip around his golf schedule.
There
That
you
was really it. And his poker buddies.
So that's Mr. Manuel, Mr. Roger Manuel, and then there's Mr. Shane Miller, who I hadn't thought of it before, but there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah,
Like, both of them, I'm up for it.
we're
Like,
up
I'm
for
up
it.
for it. Totally in. And Shane is a hilarious, understated guy. Gonna kind of sit back, but it's been a while since I've seen Shane. But just kind of sit back. But when he makes a comment, it's usually really, really, really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's also, to some degree, he's in it. He's in it to win it. Like, these are alive humans.
Yes. And great thing about Shane is he's incredibly easy to be with and to get along with. So both of these
Agreeable.
guys,
Yeah.
to be trapped in a car for 24 hours with them, that is not that's fine. I'm going to be the most cantankerous one of those three. No problem.
The two men who I would say they default to yes.
Yeah. When they were alone, they were out looking at historical markers and covered bridges. They came back with like photos when I would be at the basketball camp. It was like, were you guys on a honeymoon or what are these pictures? I mean, it's the two of them, like, one of them has his arm up on a
Covered bridges.
historical fence and stuff. I mean, it's really funny. So that's how the trip got thrown together. A lot of people dread having a long car ride with their family, and they think the best thing they could do is fill up the hours. So put a movie on with a kid, give them a device of some kind, and let's just kind of and as Mark and I have said before on this podcast, that is really precious time. It is time when everyone is there and ready, and we're present with each other if you can make something of it. So You know me, if I know that there's a road trip coming, oh boy, I'm kind of stocking the cabinets of what's what we're going to do. So I had found a good book that I knew my dad would be interested in, and Shane's going to be happy to jump in on whatever my dad would be interested in. Um, I took a couple of different boxes of Trivial Pursuit cards. Hello, of course. I mean, of course, you're going to walk through that during a road trip. I had stocked up on a couple of podcasts and podcasts. Let me just throw this out. If you're on a road trip with friends, a podcast is great for two reasons. One, because we experienced this on Mark's road trip for his 40th in Utah. We had a car full of guys. These are all guys who are interesting guys. We like each other. I want to hear from them. But Mark said, I want everybody to be quiet for 30 minutes. We're going to listen to this. And then he turned that off. And oh my goodness, the conversation exploded. Everybody reacting to this thing. And what do you think about this? And where do you think he gets it wrong? And it was great. So
Fodder. You need a little fodder.
not only do you have something to chew on collectively, but while you're listening to it, you do get the pleasure of it's rather quiet time. I'm not being called on to talk or interact or whatever.
Socially, it's like a I need a
A little
little
downtime.
so that I can be up for it later.
Come back. And then I'm known for I am going to be stocked with a variety of interesting snacks
I know you are.
when we drive away. So that's always kind of fun.
Well, give us a for instance, because you do come up with odd and unusual, typically cherry flavored snacks.
If there are flavor options, I'm going to go cherry. I mean, if there's a
Always.
slushy out there, well, who's interested in a friggin' blue raspberry slush? We know what cherry is. It doesn't taste anything like cherries, but we know what that flavor is.
Yeah.
So we like that. Anyhow, well, what you want to do when you're setting up the snacks for a road trip, you just have to hit the categories.
Mm,
So people want something sweet, but it can't be rich and sweet. It has to be a nibbling kind of a sweet. You can hit it for a while. That makes sense.
yeah, sure.
So I find that something that is low on like sugar content but high on feel. Oh, I hate mouth feel, but the feel of the thing, the
Right.
chewing of the thing. So I like gummy lifesavers for this reason.
Oh, yeah, I go with that.
That's a good road trip kind of food. I always like hit something in the pretzel department. So whether it's those flavored things where it's
Mm,
bits of things or just pretzels are good. You people typically want something chocolatey. M&Ms are a good standby there. And then I find something in the meat category, something in the beef jerky category is a nice rounding out of the snack menu. A little why not go exotic? Why not go bison jerky? Why not go turkey jerky? Let's come on. We're on a road trip. It's time to explore, adventure.
mhm.
So anyways, I try to do that kind of stuff. And people are delighted when you go out of your way a little bit to give them a little thrill.
Yeah.
Now we want to get to the meat of the whole reason that we're talking about this is not because people want to hear about a road trip. And so this is my first, I'm going to collect 3 data points for you. This is my first big data point is that the setting we were in was very small towns scattered around a landscape connected by two lane roads, winding, not on a grid roads with diners interspersed. Oh, we had some delicious food at diners. Did you know the diner was invented in Massachusetts? Well, it was. There were many Trivial Pursuit questions that had to do with what we were seeing and experiencing. It was crazy. One of them was where diners came from. And we're like, well, we're definitely eating at a diner tonight. And we had a fantastic experience. Um, you know what? As I'm sharing with these things, I'll be sharing photos on the YouTube of this. So I'm going to throw some fantastic diner photos. We ate at a place called, I believe, the Green Pea or the Pea Pod, something about a pea. And these diners, they'll cook you a steak, they'll have a lamb chop, and they'll have like four fantastic pies there. It's just a little roadside diner, but you think, wow, the variety of food you have at the go here. Not to mention your New York, your egg creams and this kind of stuff that's exotic for us Southerners.
What's an egg cream? I hear that in a movie, and I'm like, I don't. I've meant to look that up. Be our
And
Google.
an egg cream is a milk-based drink that has seltzer water in it. So it's kind of like a yoo-hoo. They're It's not very sweet. It's like a custard drink that has seltzer in it. I can't say you're falling over yourself going, boy, give me some more of that, but it was interesting.
Yeah, at the least, it's something. It's something unique. You want something regional, and that's. I think you've talked about this before. Like, our world is no longer regional.
Exactly right.
If you can find something regional, by all means, go out of your way.
Exactly right. If you think for a second that when I drive through Great Barrington, Massachusetts, population maybe 6,000, and I'm going to stop at the Dunkin' Donuts there
Right.
instead of stopping at what was it called? The Bacon Bakery,
Hmm.
something like that, where they make all of their biscuits and pastries in bacon grease. Hello. And then they will also often take bits of bacon and put it in the pastries. Well, that's where I'm stopping. I'm not stopping at Dunkin' Donuts.
Good thing you
Anyhow,
weren't traveling with an older gentleman who'd had heart issues.
I don't think that stops him. I don't think that should stop me. He's been diagnosed with diabetes at one point, and his reaction to hearing this diagnosis was, well, I'm not going back to that doctor anymore.
You can either get a second opinion or no opinion.
Yep. Don't want the opinion. I'm fine. Um, yeah, people who have listened to old episodes of my father talking, we did a great episode with him and my mother. I'll look for a link to it. That was about death and the fear
Oh
of
yeah,
death.
yeah.
And they are just like, we're not wearing masks. We're not doing any of this. My dad called it Covis. We're not doing any of this Covis stuff. He's like, I'm going to live my life. I have to die at some point. Not only am I not afraid of dying, I'm looking forward to dying. It's going to be great to be with the Lord and to be with my family that's passed on. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So my dad's, I guess you could shake your finger at him if you want to, for him not making much of the diabetes diagnosis. But I tell you this, that old man has lost a whole lot of weight since I saw him last.
My word.
He's doing real fine
He
because they
holds
left
up the
that.
bacon biscuit and just goes, "Hasten the day."
He goes unto your name, and then he takes a big chomp.
Your dad. I forgot about Covis.
Covis, yes, yes,
Dang it! Because I
indeed.
remember when I heard that episode, I thought, I'm now only referring to COVID as Covis.
Yeah, that has been the case for me. So that's my first data point, is that we are in small town America. We have been polarized to think of people groups in various states based on what they're going to vote for in a presidential election. And we can think that we're so different from, Texans are so different from New Yorkers. Okay, culturally that might be true. They might drink their egg creams and we like a sarsaparilla. I don't know what it is. But in these small towns, these are country people. They live close to the earth. They're clearing land, they're chopping wood. And we've already mentioned James Taylor. I couldn't get him out of my brain because I'm thinking of him. He's an old man who has a fire going in his barn. And I think his little writing room is to the side of his barn. And I know he's out there chopping wood and cutting his hands on brush and junk like that. And I'm thinking that's these people. And most of your life, you don't talking about political opinions. You're just living life. And these people were kind. Oh my goodness. We went talk about, we got one recommendation from a local, and we went to one night we had dinner at a microbrew pub. You know, Jeff, you got to have that, got to have those local breweries. You want to say
I,
something here as a beer defender?
no, I think it's all stupid. I think
Okay.
it's all stupid.
Okay.
Oh, look, we made our own.
We
You know what you
made
want?
our
See,
own.
micro colories. We made our own cola. Out, it's a unique cola. It has hints of nutmeg in it. You're really gonna want to savor this cola.
Oh,
Now it's gonna be
that's got to be on
12.95.
Portlandia somewhere. Is
Yeah, that's probably
micro
true.
cola.
Micro coloria.
Anyhow, we went to one of these places. It was done up. You know, there's new money there. They've got this new big kind of newly designed to look old fashioned, like nice exposed timbers and all that. And we walk into this place because we were told the food is good. And right there is a bluegrass band of probably 10 or 12 locals. They're old people. It looks like the county doctor is playing a banjo. There's an old guy, a big old guy playing a stand-up bass. His gray-headed wife is strumming a guitar and singing. And I was just like, we can stay here all night, fellas. It does not get better than this. I am loving this. So it was just the region felt very colloquial. It felt very, I'm not from here, but I belong here. I don't feel like an outsider here. It everybody that you met was genuine. And and one other thing I'll say about the area was, this area of the nation is friggin' packed to the gills with history. Every half mile, there's something that you go, I read about that in a history book. That happened here. There are these cemeteries scattered throughout the countryside. We would just pull over and look. Oh yeah, there's Civil War uh, graves here. I mean, there are pioneer graves in these. We drove by a barn that said 1642 on the side. You think that barn? Wait a second. You tell me that barn was there 100 years before America began? It was just so cool. Um, we drove by a big, I don't know what you'd call it. It wasn't a boulder. It was a shaped stone, but it was a marker to Shays' Rebellion. It was like, this is where Shays' Rebellion happened. I'm like, pull the car back. What did that just say? And so we all brush up on Shays' Rebellion. And when we got out to look at the Shays' Rebellion marker, we also saw, wait, what's that over there? The Appalachian Trail crossed right here through this. And I'm just going, this is such a neat area. Just every building is historical. These are old towns. It was just neat. Okay, so that
Well, you got, like, if you think of America, and you go where you were, and let's say you're going to put a little marker for a historical spot. The density is as dense as it gets there, and then as you radiate out across America,
gets,
the density is just, there's none.
yes,
There's
that's right.
none. You get down to Florida, hardly any. You get down to California, it's all silliness.
Gold
I
Rush.
mean, yeah, that's it. That's the best you can do. But up there, the density is high.
Yeah. And so you're picturing the dude playing the drum and the guy with the piccolo and the guy holding the flag, and you're just like, this is pioneer America right here.
We should talk about that Piccolo guy for a moment. That was his role in the war. And he's like committed to it. I think, is he the guy who's got the bandage on his head? So something's gone. Maybe that's who they gave the Piccolo gig to, was the guy who couldn't remember his name, and they hand him a
Well,
piccolo.
I was thinking of this jaunty little happy. I think of him like skipping and jumping in the air while they're marching by guys with sawn off arms and stuff. And he's like,
Yeah.
"It's happy day. We're doing a dance in the field. Hey, could you turn that down a little bit? My buddy just was bleeding out beside me.
Yeah,
It's
some
gonna be
guy like,
quick."
and they waving. Maybe he's also the saw guy. Like maybe he plays the piccolo while they're
Maybe he plays the piccolo to drown out the
the scream.
graphic horror memories he
That's
has.
what. Well, I think he plays it in the hospital area.
And there's while he's playing his jaunty tune, there's like a tear coming down his cheek.
I know why I'm playing this loud. War was weird back then.
Yeah, things were taking us down Piccolo Lane. There was one place that as a tourist I wanted to see on this trip. And I made it very clear to the other trip goers, we will be going there. To which they responded, yeah, that's fine. That's fine with me. Yeah, sure. Where we went was, drum roll, the Norman Rockwell Museum. Now, Norman Rockwell, you might be so young that you don't know the name, or it doesn't conjure up images to you automatically. You might not have had a coffee table book of Norman Rockwell in your home the way that I did growing up, but it's for certain that if I showed you 30 images that are his, they would ring a bell. You go, I know I've seen that. Even a lot of the popular notions that we have of Santa Claus came from Norman Rockwell's brain. This guy was an illustrator, and he he's separate from a fine painter, because I talked with our friend David Sheldon, who's a professional artist, and Sheldon was just saying a lot of people besmirched Norman Rockwell because he was an illustrator, which means he got paid to do the things that he did. And most famously, he would create an image for the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. And he started out as a kid who loved drawing. Listen to this stat that I learned. At age 17, he was the graphic editor for Boys Life magazine. And he worked with Boy Scouts and made patriotic calendars for them for like 40 years. He started doing that at 17. And so some of his, I had never really looked at his images all side by side, but if I showed you, I think his first cover for Saturday Evening Post was this one where there's a kind of a proper boy who's wearing a suit and he's pushing a pram, and then beside him are two other boys that are going to the baseball game, and they're like, "Oh, pushing the baby,"
It's
and the
very
kid
Little Rascals looking.
and the kid in the suit is like, "Oh, I can't believe I have to do this." You can see that that's a really immature style based on what he does later. You can see that it's just not as put together. Well, what you learn about this guy is how much effort he put into everything he produced. There's a really famous in his retirement, he started getting into human rights kind of issues. And there's a famous painting that he did of the little black girl going to the integrated school for the first time, and she has National Guard in front and behind her. So take that image, for example. What he did was he constructed a drawing of his idea, and then he would move the soldiers around make another drawing. What if they're here and here? And then he did a color study. What color should these soldiers' uniforms? Does the brightness of her white dress take away from the blackness of her face? What if her dress was green? And he does color studies, and he's like, okay, I'm happy with the structure of this image, and I'm happy with the colors. Now he goes and finds models. There's another famous image of his where there is a boy. It's called The Runaway. There's a boy on a round seat in a
A diner.
diner, and there's a policeman leaning over him, and it's kind of like the policeman's trying to take him very seriously. Oh, you ran away? Wow, what was it? Must have been tough. And the guy behind the counter is smiling knowingly, like, "Yeah, partner, we know what it's like." And they have early versions of that image, full-sized paintings that are there in the museum, where the color of the seat is different. The kid's hands are in a different place. There's a different faced guy. It was originally a young kid behind the working the soda fountain. He decided, I like it better with both of these guys being old, kind of like they're both taking care of him, etc. It was just really interesting. I drove away from there saying this guy deals with painting. He has several skills that come into play here. He knows how to tell a story. That's job number one. Job number two is he has the technical skill to set it up and to, he would grab pictures of the neighbor's gardener. He's like, that neighbor's gardener has a nice earnest face. And so he said, I want that to be the guy who, in the story, the picture called Freedom of Speech, where the guy's standing up and he's speaking his mind while everybody around him is looking up at him to listen to him. That guy, the face, that was the neighbor's gardener. He's just like, he's just got a good old American rugged face. I want to, so he could, that was like skill number two, is setting up this scene. And skill number three is just fine art. I mean, his painting technique was outrageous, so much so that he would imitate other artists in his art. There's the famous one called the Art Critic. It's a guy standing in front of a Jackson Pollock-esque painting, and there's pictures of him studying and learning how to do Jackson Pollock art. And he's in his sock feet, splotching the same way Jackson Pollock did, just to make this phony, inside his frame. So I was saying, driving away, I said a couple of things. One, this guy's like a songwriter to me, because a songwriter has to tell a story and he has to have the creative expertise to actually do the music. I mean, you can tell a story in a poem, and now how do you make the music serve that also? He was also doing that with storytelling in paint. It's so cool the way he would snatch a moment and you could grasp the whole story. Um, the second thing I drove away with, and this place was really neat. You could walk down to, they actually, this was his home where this place is. So it's back in the sticks. And his studio where he painted, you can walk right into it, and they have it set up so that you kind of can see his process of, like I'm describing, the different stages in one of his famous paintings. So you're kind of seeing the drawing on the table, then you see the canvas up there, etc. So I walk around the grounds and I'm just kind of musing over all of this. Like, why am I having the kind of reactions that I'm having to what I'm seeing here? And I just feel like one thing for sure is that I'm seeing the stories behind the images that were the wallpaper of my youth. For sure, I'm seeing that. The other thing is, so we kind of sat for a minute in the car, and I just said, I gotta say, one thing that's affecting me right now is that I feel so loyal to the version of America that he saw and what he captured. This was a guy that worked from, oh, I'm going to get this date wrong. I think he worked from the 20s into maybe 60. And so those 40s and 50s, I mean, there was this gushing love of the US military, a gushing support and cheering of everything that they did. He wasn't a religious guy, wasn't a Christian, but you look at these, there were many images where he highly values spirituality. Matter of fact, a book that I bought there was called Norman Rockwell and Faith. He valued going to church. He valued prayer. He valued public prayer. He valued the freedom of religion. One of his famous paintings kind of represents all faiths of the world, and he has painted an inscription on the bottom: "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And like, it's kind of like he's speaking prophetic truth and doesn't know where it's coming from, I suppose. But a love of a love of small town, a love of family, um, a kind of sentimental look at what we love about America. You know, high school football games and fishing trips, and his version of America. I was just saying that I have more fealty to what he describes as America than the America that I see right now. Then when I look on the internet or even go downtown into my city, and it looks like a foreign place, and when I look at Norman Rockwell, I go, that looks like home. Um, I don't know how to describe that otherwise, but it's a
I,
strange feeling.
it's funny you say this because I've thought this recently, and where it came up for me was, I hope this episode airs before Christmas, where again we're up in with in-laws, and Sunday night, all of us, there were 10 of us, we all went to the local movie theater to watch White Christmas. And if you're like, I'm some guy, I don't know how to watch, please watch White Christmas. It's always streaming on Netflix, by the way. Some reason Netflix hasn't caught on that this movie's too good to air, so it's always on
It's
there.
too wholesome for them.
Two whole. We watch this movie every year, sometimes multiple times around Christmas. But we went to the theater and saw it, which was just glorious. I mean, it was a beautiful looking movie. You know, on a theater, you see things you didn't see before. Anyway, but I finished the movie and I thought the same thing you're thinking
Mm,
coming out of the Rockwell thing. That's that's the America. I like your phrase, that I have fealty to.
yeah,
There's a moment in the movie. Well, I walked out and I just told everybody, I was like, those are old fashioned values.
yeah,
Honor. And there are so many things throughout that whole movie. I hate to say old fashioned values. And I don't want to sound too like, yeah, but now, of course, the 1950s and whatnot had its problems. Like, there were problems there. I'm not saying there weren't problems. But I think we so quickly in our modern age go, yeah, well, there were this problem, this problem. So it was obviously a terrible place. You talk to old people, they go, oh, that's pretty great. A lot of it was great.
yeah.
A lot of it was great. And I get it. For some people, it wasn't great. But there was at least a core there that you can look back on and go, gosh, I miss that. At least in culture, everyone knew Bible
Oh
stories.
yeah.
I miss that in culture, we would at least, nobody would go, I'm not sure I'm going to admire the military. No, those people gave up their lives, so we're
Yes.
going to admire them. I don't care what you think.
Right.
Those touchstones are gone.
Yes. Yes.
So Rockwell and watching a movie like White Christmas, I don't know. Maybe you can help us sort through some of it. Like, I also don't want to be that guy who's like, it was so much better back then, and why? But maybe that's okay.
Well, it's very strange. All I can say is that there's a tension that I feel, which is that being sentimental for the way things were, um, is moral in a lot of ways. Like, okay, um, I don't know if people know this, but there are cultures that are superior to other cultures. There are godless cultures and there are godly cultures. So if you have to vote for a culture which is completely skewed and warped versus a culture which, as you say, um, socially speaking, we I mean, I don't know that people know this kind of stuff anymore, but in the 40s and 50s, to be divorced was verboten. It would be a scarlet letter that you wore around. It was dramatically frowned upon. Um, to be a drinker in a lot of ways was like that. You raise some eyebrows. You better be responsible with that. Um, you just look at how the concept of modesty. What did modesty look like in the 40s and 50s versus what is worn on the streets today, every day? Um, so if you kind of have to vote with your sentiments, whether it's America 2022 or America 1952, I'm encouraging you to vote for 1952 and do whatever you can in your home to keep the 50s alive. If I may say. So, like, um, the image that we all have of Thanksgiving is grandma and grandpa laying the turkey onto the table with the rest of the family, excited, uh, congenial with each other, and just happy to be there. We got that image from Norman Rockwell. He painted that painting, as to illustrate one of the four freedoms, and it ended up on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. We experienced that. Many of you did as well. My family experienced that picture when we went home to my parents' house in Houston, and we experienced Thanksgiving Day as my parents proudly brought the turkey to the table. And I'm just telling you that if there's something lovely, wholesome, I could quote Philippians 4:8 right now. Why don't I do that? Whatever is true, whatever is noble. Hello, remember that word? As you remember White Christmas, when they sing a song of patronage to this general, telling how much they admire him, what they think of this man. It's so cool. Whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely or admirable. Admirable. Another fantastic image, Norman Rockwell. There's a couple of, I wouldn't call them ne'er-do-wells, but they're just regular old kids who aren't they don't know anything. They're just kids. And we're seeing a scene inside a cafe where a grandmother and her grandson are pausing to pray before they eat their lunch. And everyone around them is looking at them like, what do they know? That's the whole look on everybody's face. What do they know? What are they doing? Um,
That's modern people looking at his paintings.
that's exactly right. And I would categorize that under admirable. Admirable. If anything is excellent or worthy of praise, think about such things. So I bought a big old um, coffee table book of his stuff because I want my children to be thinking about these things. The things that are represented as paintings, I want that to color their internal world. I want the best I can. I want to help them experience nostalgia for something that they never experienced. I do. I never experienced World War II, but I feel the nostalgia and the camaraderie and the faith of that time. And I got to say, his paintings helped me do that. And I want that in my kids as well.
Wouldn't you say there's a lot of that in the Old Testament? Hey, do you remember the great days of Israel? Do you remember those
Yes.
days, those glory days? I think there's also something interesting here where I'm going to speak beyond my can a bit, but what was happening in art history at the time of Norman Rockwell was the opposite. He was the anomaly.
That's
So
exactly
what was
right. He was a
happening
fuddy
there?
duddy.
He was the old fuddy duddy, and so people looked at his art, like you said, kind of turned up their nose. Oh, he's an illustrator. He's on, but it was less. I don't think it was as much that as it was he's painting life or he's painting idealized life. Whereas everyone else at the time, you're moving into this abstractionism. You're moving into formlessness. This is not a shape. This doesn't. This is non-representational art, and so the elite went up in this direction. And so anytime, I mean, you don't have to scratch into hardly any of these Norman Rockwell books to read it. Usually in the preface, someone will say, look, most people don't like Norman Rockwell. And then they're about to set up why, but we get it. But then, here's why you should like. They hated him. They did not like him
Yeah.
because they looked at him and said, you old fuddy-duddy, you don't get it. This isn't where we're going. How they looked at Norman Rockwell is how 2022 man looks at the values of the 1950s and goes, so outdated, so
Yeah.
old-fashioned, eh.
Yeah. Well, I back to the kind of coaching idea when it comes to nostalgia. I just think we should all be sleuths. Like our whole lives, we have magnifying glasses out, and we're looking for the kingdom. That's what we're doing with our lives. And you haven't said it this way, but I will put these words into your mouth. There are parts of White Christmas when the granddaughter looks up at her grandfather with such esteem that it chokes her up. You are like, I smell the kingdom in that. That is actually God's design for family. That a grandchild would feel that way about grandpa. That is actually God's design. And a child would actually think, if God is as good as grandpa, wow, he must
Mm,
really be. So he's like my concept of grandpa times a million. He made
mm,
everything that there is, but he's as good and true and noble and dignified as grandpa. And
mm,
then she builds her worldview around that. You're smelling the kingdom.
mm,
So, there are things that are nostalgic, like a 1950s Santa drinking a Coca-Cola bottle, which he also did. And I think that's nostalgic, but it doesn't move me. It doesn't do anything to me because
right.
there's no kingdom in that. There's no kingdom in Santa Claus drinking a Coca-Cola. But there are things that are kingdom to me. This will sound so silly for me to put this in this category, but there's this great image. It's a guy who is on his way home. We assume Friday afternoon. He's been busting it at the pencil factory or whatever he does, and you see the story of him getting out of his car, coming down around the hill because there's an overpass with a stream going through, and there's articles of clothing leading all the way down to the stream. And then this old guy who has no dignity left, he's not trying to pretend he's Mr. Businessman. He's in the stream spitting water out of his mouth. And it's very Disney, the way that it looks. But you think, what I saw in that picture was this guy worked his tail off and did his best, and he was exhausted, and now it's time to rest.
Mm.
And good rest. One thing about these things is that there's no rest with them. I'm just holding a case because my phone isn't in here, but there's no rest with phone cases, and there's no rest when you have an electronic device near you. And I like those pictures of rest. That smells like kingdom. Dot dot dot. I could go on.
Can I'll just I'll touch a third rail quickly. This is what breaks my heart about, you mentioned Disney, but this is what breaks my heart about Disney.
Oh, of course.
That the product of Disney now isn't just innocuous, it's insidious.
Correct.
But if you can pull up old Disney, my gosh, like like you watch the old Parent Trap movie.
Of course.
Like what's that about? Trying to get a marriage back
That's
together.
exactly right.
Wait a minute, we're not doing you I watched the old Disney stuff, and it makes me feel this nostalgia, and it also makes me, you'll hear people say it's like they're besmirching the Disney name, and I'm like, nowadays I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
Well, what's Mary Poppins about? It's about recapturing the heart of a father and putting him
Hmm.
back in his right place in a home. I mean, there are. Yeah, but I'll just use this opportunity to say, if anybody listening is considering, you've thought, do I take my kids to Strange World to see Strange World? Let me answer that question for you. It's a no. Their whole point of that movie is to create characters that turn sexuality and family life on its head. So don't see that movie.
You may be glad to know it's one of the biggest bombs in Disney history, and I read a lot of Hollywood thought about it. It's like, well, they're kind of hemming and hawing
Yeah, right.
about why it has done so incredibly poorly. Take your family to White Christmas instead.
There you go. So I have to put a coda on this, which is um, I gave you I said I had three data points. One was the area of the country that we were in that had an effect on me. We were very isolated. History. Two, Norman Rockwell Museum, and then we were going to do our Monday morning. We're just going to truck it all the way back. And Shane says, hey, I was looking at our route tomorrow morning. It seems like just about 20 minutes outside of our route would be, we could run by the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. I was like, I'm in. My dad's like, yeah, whatever y'all are doing, I'll be there too. So we went to Cooperstown, New York, which, by the way, nobody accidentally goes to Cooperstown. It is completely out of the way of everything. It's like 3 hours. The nearest thing would be Buffalo. I don't know why you'd go to Buffalo either, but it is
Isn't that
in,
how all these places should be? Like, it shouldn't be, we're in town, why not stop here? It
yes,
should be a destination.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you go to Cooperstown, it puts you in a whole frame of mind because between the interstate and Cooperstown is between 30 and 45 minutes of two-lane roads through farmland. And then you arrive at Cooperstown where they invented baseball. Well, I don't really keep up with baseball. I was very into baseball as a kid, and walking through the Baseball Hall of Fame, which of course they had some Norman Rockwell in there. There's the one where the umpires are feeling for the rain and the two guys are going like, sorry, it's called because of rain, and put me right back in the same place. That's my third data point is Baseball Hall of Fame, which this game is so old. It is so old. And Cincinnati was where the first professional baseball team was, where people first got paid to play baseball. But I'm walking there. I'm walking through there with my dad, and we want to go look at Wade Boggs. We want to look at Kirby Puckett. We want to look at Dave Winfield. We want to look at Mike Schmidt. We want to look at Nolan Ryan. We see Craig Biggio up there. We're just seeing all of these characters from my childhood watching baseball with him. And it was just weird. That's all I know to say. Like, I didn't map this trip out to be father and son meaningful time, but like, even at the basketball camp, when's the last time my dad watched me play basketball? And he's like rooting for me, and I'm making shots in the scrimmages, and I'm just like, what is this? This is really bizarre. And then we go to the Baseball Hall of Fame together, and man, that it's so weird the way that memory works, because we're they do a like a 45-minute video in the theater when you first get in, and it's like they must know exactly the age of the people that are coming there or something, because they are, I mean, I'm welling up with tears watching these baseball moments, sitting by the old man beside me. And it was just it was a great trip with my dad. I would encourage anybody, if you can get time with your dad, to do anything that the two of you are interested in together. For years I've tried to get my dad to go on that Robert Trent, what's his name, Jones. He has all the fancy golf courses in the South. I knew my dad would be interested in that. Dad, why don't we do that together? I don't care very much about golf, but he does. And just make efforts like that to form strong memories and bonds with your parents while you've got them. Isn't that right, Jeff?
That's right. Yes, my dad passed away, and there's obviously things I wished I would have done with him.
Yeah, but the things that you did do with him are just, they're treasures.
Oh gosh,
Like,
man.
you have that picture in your study of the two of you together. You're doing a fun trip. You're in the rain together. I'm sure it was a mess of a day, but you've got that memory, right?
Yeah, don't overlook those things. Real quick, back to Cooperstown. It's the same thing as the Norman Rockwell. Like
Exactly.
I look at I think of I watch old baseball clips or old basketball clips, and I think I mean I personally couldn't care less anymore about baseball, but the idea of old baseball, like watching Field of Dreams or
Yes.
like when it was the national sport,
Yes.
I'm interested in that.
Yes.
Like, that sounds great. What it is now, I don't even know what that is. Like, I mean, I hate to feel this way. Okay, two things. I hate to feel this way about basketball because I really used to really care about basketball. I don't care about basketball anymore. I would rather watch old games on YouTube than, and it reminds me of this. So sorry, this all connects.
Yeah.
We're here on this trip. One of my favorite things about the little town where my wife is from is this small little used bookstore. And so every time I'm here, I go, I'm going to the used bookstore. Great, go do your thing. So I go there. Well, this time I got a December 25th, 1950 Life magazine. And I got this thing back, and I mean, I am just pouring
Just loving
over,
every page.
because it's the time, and I'm reading about God on these pages. It says faith in the battlefield. There's a Korean War.
Wow.
It was stunning, and I thought to myself, if anyone wants to get me a subscription to something, this is the subscription I would like. Once a month, an old Life magazine shows up
Oh,
from the 40s or 50s.
wow.
What a genius service that would be.
Holy
Wouldn't
smokes.
that be great?
That would be amazing.
Because now I'll say this, it also makes me think of Midnight in Paris, a great Woody Allen movie.
Yeah.
There can be an over focus on
Sure.
the past.
Sure,
And
sure,
I
sure.
know that I have a strong tendency towards that.
I just came back from a trip to College Station. I went to Texas A&M University, and the friend that I went to the game with said, I recently took my son to a Cincinnati Bengals game. And he said, the atmosphere was just the worst. The language around us, everybody was drinking. He's like, somebody vomited near us. It was just filthy. And he said, I went to that game, and that whole weekend, we did all the march in of the team and the band, and we did all the things that you can do around he just said, there's nothing here that you wouldn't want an 8-year-old kid to
Mm,
witness. Everybody was friendly. It felt safe. If anybody used bad language, people turned around and looked at them. I mean,
mm,
so when we have these, I'm not here to hype that university, but when we have these moments, whether it could be at your junior high basketball game that you go to for your kids, but when we have these moments of where kingdom life, the smell of kingdom breaks through, it just grips our hearts to go like, I want to go home. This is where I want to be. I want to be there. And I don't want to have to slog through the crud that happens on social media and whatever else. So I
well,
think that's built into us to have that longing, to be looking for those things. And I just had a neat, again, unplanned experience of doing those things with dear old dad. So
maybe to put a button on that, you can go experience those things. You can go experience those values in certain places, reminders of those values. But you have a home, and that home is the place where you're going to make all of that stuff
that's
your
exactly right.
reality.
That's exactly right. So I would just plead with everybody, don't try to make your home a modern home. Try to make your home an eternal place where the kingdom reigns. And if you have a dishwasher, hey, knock yourself out. Enjoy that. I do like a dishwasher. But our goal isn't keeping up with the neighbors. Our goal isn't that whatever's new and cool, we want to be part of it. I want my kids wearing the latest and greatest and all that. That is not our culture. Our culture is that we're looking for a city, right? This is Hebrews 11. We're looking for a city not made by human hands. And we want that culture of that city to be experienced under our roofs. And I would just say, if you can beg, borrow, and steal anything from anywhere to import those lessons and to have those things reinforced, whether it's showing old baseball clips in your house or putting Norman Rockwell up on your wall, or we like to have illustrated Bible verses on the house of our home. This little wall right here is a great representation of exactly what we're talking about. This is a Charlie Parker image. You can't see it on the camera. It's a Charlie Parker hello image of a woodpecker. Um, and that what that says to me is to be diligent. That woodpecker, he bangs his head until something comes out, and we want to be diligent. Here's Oscar Robertson right here from the 1950s. Man, he represents so many great things to me. I have this Bible verse, etc. I have these old ships from 1800s behind me. You know, I'm trying to reinforce this story that's being told about the kingdom everywhere in my home, that which is my physical capital, that which is my space. I want my stuff and my family to look like the eternal, unchanging kingdom. So
Maybe you could say that Rockwell had his canvas, and on that canvas is what he would use to, I'm going to bring this stuff to life. That's our house and the culture of our home.
that's
If somebody
exactly right.
walks in my house and goes, boy, it feels like a Norman Rockwell painting in here, I'd throw up my hands and go, I'm done.
And your house does. There's there's a fire burning. There's kids playing games. There's gentle conversation. There's a warm drink.
Hmm.
That's it, man. That's it. It's the Shire. That's where we're headed.
It is.
All right.
Well,
Thank
I
you
would
for your
encourage.
time, and thank you for humoring me walking through my road trip.